All right, today we're diving into what is basically a high-stakes global mission. You've got a villain, a superweed that's threatening ecosystems and economies all over the world. And the hero? Well, it's this tiny beetle, just 6 millimeters long, that's been deployed to fight back.
What we're going to do here is unpack one of the most incredible success stories in what's known as biological control. And that's a field where nature itself, believe it or not, provides the solution to these massive, often human-caused problems.
So first things first, let's meet the bad guy in this story. Its scientific name is Parthenium hysterophorus, but it also goes by things like famine weed or Congress grass. And trust me, it has absolutely earned those notorious
To really get a
nicknames.
sense of the scale here, just look at this number. This one weed is responsible for an estimated $72.2 million in losses every single year. And remember, that's just in Australian rangelands. Imagine scaling that up globally. The economic devastation is just immense.
But you know, the damage isn't just about the money. Not even close. This thing isn't just a pest for farmers. It's an ecological wrecking ball that shoves native plants out of the way. And on top of all that, it's a direct threat to our health, causing really severe allergies. So yeah, this thing is a monster. It attacks on every single front.
So the big question is, how on earth do you fight something like this without just, carpet bombing the landscape with chemicals? Well, scientists turned to this really elegant solution called biological control. They went looking for the weed's natural enemy, and they found the absolute perfect agent for the mission.
And this slide, this just perfectly sums up the David versus Goliath situation we've got here. On one side, you have this weed that can grow up to 2 meters tall, and on the other, the Mexican leaf beetle, Zygogramma bicolorata, clocking in at a mere 6 millimeters. It is the absolute classic underdog story, right?
So as you can imagine, this mission went global and fast. After the first release in Australia back in 1980, the beetle was introduced to India, and since then, it's been deployed all over South Asia and Africa. Basically, wherever this famine weed popped up, its natural enemy, our little beetle, was sent right in after it.
Okay, so how in the world does the tiny 6-millimeter beetle actually win a war against a superweed? Well, it all comes down to its relentless life cycle and a seriously voracious appetite.
The beetle's whole strategy, its effectiveness, really boils down to this life cycle. It lays its eggs right on the weed. The larvae hatch and just start munching. They grow, drop into the soil to transform, and then pop out as adults, ready to eat and lay more eggs. The whole thing takes just 6 to 8 weeks, so their population just explodes, creating this overwhelming army that the weed has no chance against.
And get this, it's not just the adults doing all the heavy lifting. The larvae hatch, and bam, they start eating immediately. Between the two of them, they strip the plant's leaves right down to the stem. They call it skeletonization. This basically just shuts down the weed's engine, stopping it from growing and making seeds. And when you look at the data, the results are, well, they're just staggering. In places where the beetle is moved in, the weed density drops by as much as 93%. Flower production, which is how the weed spreads, down by up to 100%. It's not just controlling the weed. The beetle is literally dismantling the weed's entire operation from the inside out.
And this chart, this is where you see the real-world payoff for farmers. Look at that first bar. When the Parthenium weed is there, the maize yield is just crippled. But when you bring in the beetle, the yield just skyrockets. We're talking over 500%. It brings it almost all the way back to what you'd get in a totally weed-free field. That is a game changer. A massive, massive win.
Okay, but it's not a perfect fairy tale. This mission has its challenges. Our beetle hero, as amazing as it is, isn't totally invincible, and it runs into some pretty big hurdles out in the real world. So, you might be asking, what's the catch? If this beetle is so great, why isn't it the perfect fix everywhere? Well, it really comes down to 2 big factors that can throw a wrench in the works.
Okay, so the first hurdle is something in the beetle's own biology called diapause. Think of it like hibernation for insects. For different reasons, like temperature or the length of the day, the beetles just burrow into the soil and go dormant. So they basically take a nap, sometimes at the worst possible moment, like right when the weed is having a growth spurt.
And the second problem, this one might be even bigger. Our little hero is super vulnerable to chemical warfare. I mean, look at this. Some common fungicides are 100% fatal to the larvae. They just get wiped out. Other chemicals don't kill them outright, but seriously reduce their ability to reproduce. It's a huge, huge problem when you're trying to use them on a farm.
So, all this just goes to show that even though the beetle is a huge success, the mission is far from over. The next chapter is all about making our tiny hero even better at its job.
So what's the game plan? Well, scientists are working on some really smart, integrated strategies, combining the beetle with farming methods that won't harm it. They're looking into ways to wake up the beetles from their nap earlier. And they're even getting into genomics, trying to breed like super beetles that are tougher and more effective. Some are even trying a multi-agent approach, combining it with other natural enemies.
So when you just step back and look at the whole picture, the impact is just crystal clear. Without this beetle, we're looking at catastrophic losses for farming, for nature, and for public health. But with our 6mm hero on the job, we have this sustainable, surprisingly cheap, and eco-friendly solution that is absolutely turning the tide in this war. The incredible success of this one tiny beetle on its massive global mission, it really makes you think, doesn't it? In a world that's desperately looking for more sustainable ways of doing things, maybe the answer isn't always something cooked up in a lab or built in a factory. Maybe the best solutions are already out there, just waiting for us to find the right natural specialist for the job.